The day Earth fell, the morning began like any other on Earth. Sunlight touching the tall towers of New London and children running through the streets. People looked up at the clear sky with no idea that this would be the last sunrise their world would ever see. High above the clouds in orbit, the defense station Helios floated in silence. Commander Elias Rook stood before the main window, watching the planet below. He had served in the Terran defense fleet for 15 years. He had seen border skirmishes, pirate raids, and false alarms. But never this feeling, a quiet unease in his chest. Something was coming. Suddenly, the radar officer shouted, multiple signatures appearing, unknown origin, approaching fast. Alarms filled the control deck. Red lights flashed, and the calm hum of the station became a storm of noise. Elias ran to the main console, his eyes widening as thousands of red dots appeared across the screen. They were not asteroids or debris, they were ships. Alien ships. Then the first transmission came. It was not human. A distorted voice echoed through every frequency. Cold and emotionless, this is the Vogue Dominion. Humanity has broken the accord of silence by order of High Lord Zirin. Your world will be cleansed. The room froze, no one spoke. Then Earth's Central Defense AI responded automatically. Unidentified fleet, this is United Earth Command. Stand down or face countermeasures. But the aliens did not respond. Instead, the sky itself began to tear apart. From orbit, Elias watched as blue light streaked across the darkness. One after another, beams of energy cut through the upper atmosphere. Cities exploded into pillars of fire. Entire continents vanished beneath waves of burning plasma. The planet screamed through the radio static, voices begging for help. Mothers crying, soldiers shouting coordinates. And then silence, fire back. Elias ordered. His crew moved quickly. Earth's orbital defense guns turned toward the incoming fleet. Dozens of plasma lances fired, striking several alien cruisers. Explosions bloomed in the void. For a moment, there was hope. But the Vogue ships adapted instantly. Their shields flared and they returned fire. The Helios shuddered violently as energy beams slammed into its hull. The walls trembled, sparks flew, crew members were thrown to the ground. The communications officer screamed, "We've lost contact with command." New York and Beijing are gone. Elias clenched his fists. "Keep firing," he said, his voice breaking. Through the smoke, Elias looked at the screen showing the map of Earth. Red blips disappeared one after another. He could see his home city, Rio Haven, still flickering on the map. His wife and daughter were there. He had promised to return after the patrol, and now that light flickered once more and vanished. Something inside him snapped. The grief burned into fury. "Route all power to the rail cannons," he shouted. "Target the flagship." The technicians hesitated. "Sir, that's suicide." Elias turned sharply. "Do it." The Helios main rail cannon glowed white-hot. The weapon charged beyond safe limits. The sound of metal groaning filled the deck. The energy released in one blinding pulse of light. The shot tore through the void, piercing the shield of a massive alien dreadnought. The explosion was like a second sun. Half the crew cheered, but the victory was short. 3 alien cruisers turned toward Helios, their weapons synchronized. The first beam sliced through the outer hull. The second hit the reactor bay. Alarm screamed, and Elias knew they were done. All hands. "Abandon station," he commanded. Escape pods launched one after another, streaking toward the burning planet below. Elias stayed behind with a handful of officers to cover the evacuation. He stood at the viewport watching Earth die. Continents cracked apart, oceans boiled, and the moon turned red from reflected fire. "This isn't the end," Elias whispered to himself. "They think they've won, but humanity never dies that easily." Before the final explosion reached the command deck, a transmission blinked on one of the surviving screens. It was from deep within Earth's crust, a signal marked Project Phoenix. Activated. The AI voice spoke softly. "Commander Rook, humanity's legacy will survive. The seed has been sent." Elias closed his eyes, and for the first time that day a faint smile crossed his face. "Then we'll rise again," he whispered. The Helios detonated in a brilliant flash, scattering fragments of human steel and courage across the stars, down on Earth. The few survivors who escaped into underground bunkers heard the final broadcast from the station. Elias's voice echoed faintly through broken radios. "If you hear this, remember we are still here, and one day we will return as the flames consume the planet." The galaxy fell silent, believing humanity was gone forever. But beyond the ruins, in the cold void between stars, a small pod drifted away, carrying within it a single spark of light, the beginning of the Terran Armada. And though Earth was gone, the fire of its people still burned, waiting, watching, and preparing for the day they would return, to burn across the stars once more. Years passed in silence. The stars themselves seemed to mourn the loss of Earth. What was once the heart of humanity had become nothing more than glowing ashes floating in the dark. Most believed that the human race had vanished forever, wiped out by the Vogue Dominion without mercy. But deep in the cold void, far beyond the known systems, a few ships drifted among the stars, their engines dim, their hulls cracked, carrying the last survivors of a broken world. These were the remnants of the Terran fleet. Tired, hungry, and filled with grief, among them was Commander Elias Rook, who had escaped the destruction of the Helios station by pure luck. He woke in darkness inside a damaged escape pod, alarms flashing faint red light. For a moment, he thought he was dead, but the sound of his own heartbeat reminded him he was still alive. When the hatch finally opened, he saw stars stretching endlessly before him. No Earth, no home, only emptiness. He whispered to himself, "If I'm alive, then humanity isn't finished yet." Days turned into weeks as his pod was picked up by a small Terran scout ship called the Horizon. On board were other survivors, engineers, pilots, and a few civilians who had escaped on colony shuttles. They had gathered what little they could: food, fuel, and broken technology. Their captain, a woman named Dr. Mira Solon, greeted Elias with tired eyes. "We thought we were the only ones left," she said. "But I kept searching the frequencies and found fragments of your signal." Elias nodded. "Then we start again." Together they formed the beginning of what would one day become the Terran Remnant. A scattered group of ships linked by one promise: they would rebuild. They would survive, and one day they would return to the stars not as victims, but as fire. The years that followed were harsh. The galaxy had turned against them. The Vogue Dominion hunted any sign of humanity, labeling them as contaminants of order. Colonies that once traded with humans now closed their ports. Fearing the wrath of the Dominion, every time a human signal was detected, alien fleets would descend, leaving only wreckage behind. So humanity learned to become ghosts. They hid in asteroid belts, drifted through abandoned mining stations, and scavenged derelict ships for parts. Children grew up never seeing a planet, learning how to breathe recycled air and how to stay quiet when alien patrols passed nearby. In one of these hidden stations, Elias and Mira worked tirelessly on an old piece of code recovered from the ruins of Helios. It was the Phoenix Core, a fragment of the AI that had activated moments before Earth's fall. Its purpose was to rebuild civilization from any disaster, to be the mind and heart of a new beginning. Mira connected the AI to their ship systems. The holographic figure of a glowing orb appeared in the center of the room. "Designation Phoenix Core," it spoke softly. "Rebuilding protocol initiated." Elias stared at the light, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Under the AI's guidance, they began to repair old ships, turning broken hulls into functioning war vessels. They trained new soldiers, engineers, and pilots. They taught the next generation not just how to survive, but why they must survive. "Remember what we lost," Elias would tell them, "but never forget what we are capable of." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, rumors began to spread. Alien traders whispered about mysterious attacks on remote Vogue outposts, convoys disappearing without a trace. Witnesses spoke of dark ships that appeared out of nowhere, silent and deadly, no insignias, no communication, only destruction. The Vogue Dominion called them the ghosts of Earth, but no one truly knew who they were. Inside their hidden base, an abandoned gas giant moon known as New Helios, Elias stood before the newly rebuilt fleet. It was small but powerful. Each ship bore the names of lost human cities: Berlin's Hope, Cairo's Flame, Tokyo's Dawn. Mira stood beside him and said, "This is not the end of our story, Commander. This is only the beginning." Elias looked out at the cold stars and replied, "Then let the galaxy remember us." The fleet engines came to life, glowing faintly blue against the darkness. The first mission was simple. Strike the nearest Vorg communication hub and vanish. Show the galaxy that humanity was still alive. Before launch, Elias recorded a single message, one that would be broadcast after the mission. To those who hear this, know that we endure. We are the children of a burned world, and we will not fade quietly into history. When the fleet jumped into hyperspace, the stars stretched into lines of light, and for the first time in decades, humanity moved not to flee, but to fight. The galaxy had forgotten Earth, but the fire of its people had never died. It had only grown stronger, hidden beneath silence, waiting for the moment to strike back, and somewhere, far across the stars, High Lord Zyron of the Vorg Dominion received a mysterious signal. A single phrase repeating endlessly through the static. We remember Earth. 10 long years had passed since the fall of Earth. 10 years of silence, loss, and rebuilding in the shadows. The galaxy still believed humanity was gone. But in the cold darkness of space, far beyond the galactic rim, a new world had been born. They called it New Helios. A hidden planet orbiting a dying star invisible to scanners, surrounded by clouds of ion dust. Here the survivors of Earth worked day and night, welding broken metal into ships, turning wreckage into weapons. Under the leadership of Commander Elias Rook and Dr. Mira Solon, the Terran remnant had grown into something far greater than anyone imagined. On the surface of New Helios, massive shipyards stretched across the plains. Thousands of humans moved between glowing scaffolds, building ships unlike any ever seen before. Their designs were part human engineering, part alien technology, and part something entirely new. Something born from the Phoenix core. The AI now served as the heart of their new fleet. Its voice echoed through every system, calm, cold, and strangely human. Reconstruction 92% complete. New vessels ready for launch. Elias stood on a high platform overlooking the vast hangar. Below him stood the pride of humanity's rebirth, the first ship of the Terran Armada, Aurora's Wrath, a colossal vessel that shimmered with living metal. Its hull pulsing like veins under light. Mira joined him, holding a small data pad. We've done it, she said softly, after all these years. We have a fleet again. Elias nodded slowly. No, Mira, he said, his eyes fixed on the massive ship. Now we have a weapon. One the galaxy can't ignore. They called a gathering in the central chamber that night. Hundreds of soldiers, engineers, and civilians filled the hall. Banners of blue and silver hung from the walls, carrying the symbol of a burning star, the mark of the new human empire. Elias stepped forward. The room fell silent. When they destroyed Earth, they thought they destroyed us, he began, his voice strong, echoing across the hall. But we are not a world. We are a will. They burned our home, but they could not burn what makes us human today. We rise again. The room erupted with thunderous cheers. The sound of voices that had carried pain for a decade now filled with purpose. Days later, the first operation of the Terran Armada began. The target, a Vorg Dominion convoy transporting resources across the Arkan Rift. The perfect chance to reveal their return. In the command deck of Aurora's Wrath, Elias watched the stars stretch as the fleet jumped into hyperspace. His heart steady, the Phoenix Core's holographic form appeared beside him. Glowing faintly gold, Admiral Rook, it said, using his new title for the first time. The fleet is ready. Then light them up, Elias replied. They dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. The alien convoy barely had time to react before the human fleet struck. Rail cannons fired, torpedoes streaked across the void, and ships that once were nothing but scavenged wrecks now moved with terrifying precision. A Vorg captain shouted through open channels, "Impossible! Humans are extinct." Elias smiled faintly. "Not extinct," he said. "Just reborn." The battle was over in minutes. The alien ships torn apart, their remains burning silently in the dark. The Phoenix Core broadcasted a message across open frequencies to the entire sector. A message simple and clear: humanity endures. The galaxy heard it. Every race, every empire, every ruler. The signal spread faster than the Vorg could stop it. Whispers began to grow. Rumors of human ships moving through space like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing. In the following months, the Terran Armada continued to grow. Dozens of new ships joined, each named after the lost cities of Earth: New York's Flame, Tokyo's Honor, Cairo's Dawn. Every name a memory, every ship a promise. Mira and the Phoenix Corps began developing new technologies: gravity-shifting weapons, quantum engines, armor that healed itself from damage. Humanity was no longer trying to catch up with the galaxy. They were surpassing it. Yet Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Vorg Dominion would soon respond. And when they did, the fire that once consumed Earth would burn across the stars. As he stood in the observation deck, watching the fleet rise into the night, Mira joined him again. "Do you think we can really win?" she asked quietly. Elias didn't answer for a long time, his gaze fixed on the glowing horizon of New Helios. "Win?" he said finally. "We already have, Mira, because we're still here." The engines of the Terran Armada roared to life. Lighting the darkness of the void, 1,000 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting the faint light of distant stars. And as they left New Helios for the first time, the galaxy trembled because humanity, once ashes, once forgotten, had risen again. Stronger, faster, and fiercer than ever before, the Terran Armada was no longer a dream. It was real, and its fire was just beginning to burn. The galactic reckoning. The galaxy had changed overnight. Fleets whispered of ghosts in the dark. Traders spoke of burning lights that vanished before anyone could track them. The old empires laughed at first, until the reports piled up. Destroyed convoys, crippled warships, and entire stations left adrift with the same message carved into their hulls. Humanity endures. The Vorg Dominion, proud and ancient, could no longer ignore what was happening. High Commander Sortal stood in the Grand Chamber of the Dominion's War Council, his voice trembling with fury. "You said the humans were extinct," he roared, slamming his clawed hand on the table. "Now their ships move through our borders like fire through dry grass." Advisors shifted nervously. Screens showed reports of human ships attacking at random points across the stars, always appearing out of nowhere, always leaving nothing but wreckage and silence behind. On New Helios, Admiral Elias Rook watched the chaos unfold through intercepted transmissions. Each victory message confirmed the same truth. Humanity's vengeance was shaking the galaxy. The Terran Armada was no longer hiding. It was hunting. Elias stood inside the war chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of alien territories. Beside him, Dr. Mira Solon reviewed tactical data, while the Phoenix Corps' golden form hovered silently above the map. "The Dominion fleet is mobilizing," Mira said. "They're sending over 1,000 ships toward the outer belt." Elias nodded slowly. "Let them come," he replied. "We'll show them what it means to face a world that refuses to die." Soon the stars themselves became the battlefield. In the blackness of space, the Terran Armada's ships moved with cold precision. Aurora's Wrath led from the front, its hull glowing with blue fire as rail cannons charged. Energy lances fired through the void, striking alien cruisers before their shields could react. The Vorg Fleet Command tried to outnumber them, but they didn't understand that humanity had changed. Every ship in the Armada was linked through the Phoenix Corps, reacting faster than any biological commander could. They were like a living storm. During the Battle of the Arkan Rift, the Dominion sent 3 fleets, each larger than the entire human force. The void lit up as thousands of plasma bolts tore through the dark. Yet the Terran Armada didn't retreat. They moved like a tide, pulling the Dominion center into a trap. From Aurora's Wrath, Elias gave a single command: execute Ember Protocol. At once, dozens of ships detached from formation, releasing strange metallic spheres that drifted silently. For a brief moment, the battlefield went quiet. Then those spheres erupted into searing light. Gravitational pulses tore the enemy apart from within. Entire ships twisted like paper, flames consuming the void. When the light faded, silence returned. The once invincible Dominion fleet was gone. Only wreckage and drifting bodies remained. Elias stood at the bridge window, his reflection faint in the glass. "For Earth," he whispered, and the crew echoed him in unison, their voices trembling with pride. "For Earth," the Phoenix Corps' voice broke the silence. "Admiral, the signal has been broadcast." Elias turned toward the display. Millions across the galaxy were now seeing the footage. Terran ships emerging from smoke, human soldiers standing proud, and the burning symbol of the Phoenix Star. The message spread faster than light, to every world that had mocked or enslaved humans, to every colony that had been forgotten, even to neutral races who once turned away. Humanity's return could no longer be denied. Across distant planets, humans living as servants, miners, and refugees lifted their heads toward the sky, tears in their eyes, whispering, "We're back." The Council of Species gathered in panic. The elder races debated endlessly. "If they could destroy a Dominion fleet that large," one alien said, "what happens when they come for us?" Another answered, "They won't stop, they'll want justice." Back on New Helios, Mira approached Elias after the battle, exhaustion and pride in her eyes. "They're terrified of us now," she said quietly. "And maybe that's good." Elias shook his head. "Fear isn't what I want, Mira. I want them to remember what they did," he said, looking out at the stars. "I want them to look at every sunrise and know that humans made it burn brighter." As night fell over New Helios, the entire planet glowed with life. Thousands of new ships under construction, engines blazing like newborn suns, and in the command chamber, the Phoenix core flickered with a strange light. "Almost like emotion, Admiral," it said softly. "The galaxy is beginning to understand." Elias turned to the AI. "Good," he said, his voice low, calm, and filled with the fire of a soldier who had nothing left to lose. "Because this is only the beginning." And as the Terran Armada prepared for the next phase of their campaign, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. Humanity had risen from ashes, and now the fire was spreading, unstoppable, pure, and eternal. The galaxy had seen the fall of Earth, but now it would witness something far greater. The reckoning of mankind. The fire that spreads, the war that began as vengeance, had become something far greater. Across the galaxy, the name Terran Armada echoed like a storm. Every empire, every trade route, every shadowed corner of space now spoke in whispers of humanity's rise. They called them the Children of Fire, the ones who turned despair into power. Admiral Elias Rook stood aboard the Aurora's Wrath, staring at a holographic projection of the galaxy. Half of it now burned with the red markers of battles won. The rest trembled under the weight of fear. Behind him, Dr. Mira Solon walked forward, her expression tired but proud. "The Dominion has fallen," she said softly. "Their capital world surrendered this morning." Elias didn't smile. His eyes remained fixed on the stars. "And yet," he murmured, "the one who ordered Earth's destruction still hides behind the Council's walls." The Galactic Council, once untouchable, now stood at the center of the storm. Worlds that once worshipped their power now watched in silence as the Terran Armada moved closer. Every system the humans entered, they rebuilt, they liberated human slaves. They offered medicine and protection to those who once spat on their name. But vengeance was not finished, humanity remembered, and their justice burned like a sun. The Aurora's Wrath entered Council space. The border fleets waited with weapons charged, thousands of alien ships surrounding the Terran formation. A voice came through the comms, trembling but proud. "Humans, you have gone far enough. If you cross this line, there will be no return." Elias looked calm, his hand resting on the console. "No return?" he said quietly. "We passed that point when you turned our home to ash." He gave the command. "Advance!" The Terran Armada moved forward, their engines blazing white. The alien fleets opened fire first. Beams of plasma filled the dark, but the human ships moved with terrifying unity. The Phoenix core controlled every movement, predicting every shot, redirecting every defense. Missiles screamed through the void, cutting across the battlefield like shooting stars. The first line of the alien fleet shattered, ships breaking apart under the sheer force of kinetic strikes. The galaxy had never seen war like this. The humans fought not for conquest, but for memory. Every blast, every strike carried the echo of Earth's final scream. As the fleet advanced, Elias sent a broadcast through all open frequencies, his voice steady and cold. "We are not your slaves, not your tools, and not your mistakes," he said. "You took our home, but you will never take our will. We are humanity, and today the stars remember our name." The Council's fortress world. Erythra Prime loomed ahead, a planet of towers, energy shields, and defense rings orbiting in layers. But the Terran Armada came prepared, from the dark. A new ship emerged, the Solar Vanguard, 10 times larger than any human vessel before. Its hull glowing like molten gold, powered by the Phoenix core itself. Mira watched in awe as it approached. "You actually finished it," she whispered. Elias nodded. "It's more than a ship," he said. "It's a message." The Solar Vanguard fired once. A single beam of compressed light tore through Erythra's shield network. The explosion was silent in space but blinding to the eye. The Council's stronghold shook, its power grid failing as fire spread through its skies. Inside the Council chambers, alien leaders shouted in panic. "They will destroy us all," one cried, but before they could flee, their screens flickered to show Elias's face, calm and stern. "No," he said. "We will destroy what you built, and we will rebuild something better." The Phoenix core transmitted a message to all corners of the galaxy. A new charter, a declaration of unity, the Terran Accord. A promise that humanity would protect, not rule. That they would remember the pain of loss so no world would ever face the same. When the smoke cleared, the stars seemed brighter. Erythra Prime's surface lay silent. Its war machines turned to glass. Elias stood on the bridge, watching as the fleet slowly powered down. "It's over," Mira said beside him, her voice trembling. "The war is finally over." But Elias only shook his head. "No, Mira," he said quietly. "The fire never dies, it spreads." He turned toward the stars. "And maybe now that fire will light the way for others." Weeks later, across countless systems, monuments were built not to heroes but to survivors. Banners of the Terran Armada fluttered on distant worlds. A symbol not of dominance but of endurance. Children born under alien suns spoke the word human with pride, not fear. And among them, a new age began. One where the scars of war became the seeds of hope. At the heart of it all, on the rebuilt world of New Earth, the Phoenix core pulsed with light, projecting the final message Elias had left behind. To every race who thought humanity would vanish. His voice echoed through the stars. "Remember this. We are not fire meant to destroy. We are fire meant to endure." And as the message ended, the stars shimmered. The void seemed alive with golden embers drifting endlessly through space. The Terran Armada had finished their vengeance. But their story was far from over. Humanity had risen once more, and the galaxy, now reborn in their light, would never forget the fire that spread forever.